Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do chapter 24, From a Stranger. Chapter 24. Ilio. All I wanted to do was call Danny. I missed him, and he only left this morning. The old cliche about it feeling like your heart was ripped out, it's not a cliche. It's true. Each time I surfed, I expected Danny to lay on the board, and off we'd go. When I went to pick up a vest from the lifeguard tower, I had to stop myself from ordering two. Billy never wore one anymore. Why had I even bothered? Sitting in the shade of the umbrella next to Billy's chair, I stared at my phone. No new messages. No new calls. Some kids ran across the sands, kicking a soccer ball between them. Last night had meant more to me than Danny realized. I yearned. No. Ached. No. Missed. Needed. I don't know what the word is, but sitting out here staring at all the couples wandering around made it worse. I wasn't going to be one of those insecure boyfriends who had to check his phone all the time. Yes, I was. I looked at my phone. No new messages or calls since the last time I checked. I fell back on the green beach towel, staring at the underside of the umbrella. It had been an hour since Danny had called. Maybe 2. What would Barney say? Go do something. I slipped my earbuds in, found some music, and went for a walk. Sunday at the beach was always overflowing with people. It was the same beach where Danny and Johnny had their accident. I walked over to the broken wall, or whatever it was, watching the kids jump off it. If they only knew. I checked my phone again. No new messages or calls. I started back to our base camp, dodging past a girl balancing drinks in each hand. My phone rang, and I answered it immediately. Danny's face appeared on the screen. "Hey, boyfriend," he said. It felt so good to hear his voice. I didn't realize how much my shoulders had tensed, and I forced them to relax. "Hey, babe." Daniel took out a Sharpie and made a mark on the back of his hand. "That's 2. 2 what?" I asked. "I'm keeping track of what I owe you," he said. Something smelled good. Somebody was barbecuing something in a portable grill. I retreated inside the relative quiet under the umbrella, and the shade made the image on the phone stand out. "Where are you?" I asked. "Dead Man's Butte. I've got someone I want you to meet. Xander, meet my boyfriend, Ilio," Danny said. Danny pulled some guy into the picture, his hair tousled as if he had just gotten out of the shower. "Xander?" I said, as in Ashley and. "Get this. Ashley dumped him," Danny said. "Xander, say hi." Not saying anything, Xander blushed a little and stared at something off camera. Somebody shrieked. I looked up, spotting some boy dumping water on some girl. "Hi, Xander," I said, taking the initiative. Danny better know what he's doing. "Hi. Danny says you're a fire dancer. He showed me a couple of videos," Xander said. "We'll have to get you out here sometime. Let you join in. Do you surf or swim?" I asked. Xander smiled a little. Swim, because somebody took lessons when they were younger. He elbowed Danny in the ribs. Danny said, "I'm working on that." The light glinted on the gold ring hanging from Danny's neck. For a moment, I saw what Danny and Xander used to mean to each other before last weekend. Can a friendship ever recover from a betrayal like that? Is there anything left to salvage? "I'll give you 2 some alone time for a minute," Xander said. "I'm going to run these bags to the dumpster." A moment later, the door opened and closed. Danny drooped. His eyes sagged. He didn't need a suitcase. The bags under his eyes were big enough to hold everything. "You won't believe how tired I am," he said. "What's the story with Xander? I thought you didn't want anything to do with him," I said. A frisbee landed by me. Some guy raised his hand and I flung it to him. Timmy and I had plenty of practice. Last weekend was as bad for him as it was for me, except he didn't have anyone there to help him. Ashley should have stepped up. But from what Xander said, she's drowning her sorrows in dance clubs and cheap bars and cheaper dates. I don't think she was ever the person I thought she was, Danny said. That's definitely not our scene. How's your dad doing? I asked. I'm meeting him and Tiffany in a little while. They've gone to some restaurant and will be back in a bit. A family ran by, hopping on the hot sand. You haven't been home, have you? I asked. Danny kind of smiled. I've lived in the Butte all my life, but it doesn't feel like home anymore. I didn't know what to say to that. Mia and Al send you their love, by the way. They want to get together in 6 months, when they're back in Hawaii. We had fun with them, Danny said. Off in the ocean, Billy and Chiori paddled ashore and sat on the edge of the water, their boards beside them. She also gave us their private number, so we can call them anytime. We can't give it out, though, I said. We chatted until Xander came back. Call me when you get to your dad's, okay? I'll try and be someplace quieter, I said. I love you, babe, Danny said. You too, I said. Everything was right with the world again. I locked my phone in the van and headed out to surf. I can't let Billy and the guys have all the fun. Danny. Okay, I'm a creep. I admit it. I didn't want to shower because I thought I smelled a little bit of Ilio on me. That was probably my imagination, but every so often, I swear I could smell him. Not a strong, unpleasant scent, but the subtle scent of his deodorant, and the smell of salt on his skin, the slight floral fragrance in his hair. Or the way his skin smelled laying next to him. My hand on his chest, feeling the beating of his heart. Stop thinking, Danny. I'm driving. The sun had set by the time I pulled up to my old house. A big place. It had 5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a nice yard. Dad made some good money back when he played pro. He was even on the cover of some cereal. The endorsements had run out, but he had watched his finances. We were never wealthy, but we had enough to live comfortably. Dad had retired a few years ago when he turned 50. Yes, he was 34 when I was born. He and Mom waited to have kids. They had waited on a lot of things, so he could play football. And that's what Derek did when he grew up. He could have gone pro after college, but he met Charlotte, and together they started All-Star Fitness, a pretty popular local gym. Of course, he used that as an excuse to continue training. As a fitness junkie and pro bodybuilder, he never stopped lifting or getting bigger. 6'6", 240 pounds, and no fat. He was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than me. I always wanted to be like him when I was growing up. He wasn't just a popular kid in school. He was the popular kid in town. Everybody knew him, cheered for him. They gave him free food and discounts wherever he went. Dad was so proud of him. Look at all the trophies in the living room. There must be 100. Last weekend, Ilio had wondered how Derek walked through doorways. He didn't. The walls just opened up enough to let him pass. I was so scared of disappointing him, terrified even. David wasn't much different, except he was shorter, and he played baseball. He still did on one of the local teams, but it was for fun now. When I realized I could never be like Derek, I think I was 14 then, I tried to be like David. That dream died when I turned 15, and I couldn't even hit a ball, or catch one without my hand feeling like something had broken inside it. David played ball in college, married Melissa. They had Amy. He was still the serious athlete. Dad was so proud of David. Look at all the trophies he had in Dad's study. He had about as many as Derek did. I guess I would have earned a trophy for math, if they ever gave out such things. No, my only accomplishment I had that Dad was proud of was one little, really scary conversation. Dad couldn't put that on the wall anywhere. I mean, be real. What would he do with it? Look, everybody, on the coffee table, there's Danny's coming out conversation. I was always the kid at the bottom of the family photo, the closet gay kid that, if Derek held his little finger just right, wouldn't even be in the picture. Guess what's funny? Dad and I connected after I came out. My brothers called him once every 2 or 3 weeks. They had their own lives. I called Dad almost every day, stopped by to check on him 2 or 3 times a week, and hung out with him watching Netflix on weekends. Can a father and son be best friends? I'm glad he found Tiffany. He's been lonely since Mom died. I think Tiffany is the first person he took an interest in since Mom's ashes ceremony 10 years ago. Dad's car was in the drive, and another, I assumed was Tiffany's. Walking up to the door, I let myself in. Anybody home? Danny, Dad yelled. He was always glad to see me. Maybe that's why I came over so much. How's Hawaii? How's Ilio? How was your flight? Beautiful. Surfing. Long. Dad hugged me as if he hadn't seen me for years, then pulled me away to look at me. He turned my head to look at my sunburned ears. It's good to have you home. Come and meet Tiffany. Walking a little slower than I remembered, he led me into the dining room where a middle-aged woman rose. I remembered her from... Oh my God. Had the party only been yesterday? When I had been in Hawaii? When Ilio had proposed? Why did I come back to Nevada? Tiffany wore an apricot-colored blouse that brought out the highlights in her brown hair. It's good to meet you in person, she said. Another hug. She spoke with a southern lilt. She eyed the ring on the necklace and then looked at my dad, then back to me. I believe it's a match for Ilio's. It is, I said. Dad stepped over to me, took one look at the ring, and kissed my forehead. I hope he makes you as happy as your mother did me. I want to hear about your entire trip. Everything. We spoke. I had a ton of pictures and videos and stories. Tiffany had to leave before we even got to Tuesday. After she left, I let Dad read the entire trip that I had written. I began to tear up when he got to the last page. Ilio made me a promise under the Hawaiian sunset. I think he proposed. Someday, Dad said, sliding his chair by mine. You have to let me meet him. We talked for another hour. Then I called Ilio, and the 3 of us talked, until I almost fell asleep at the table. My inner time clock is so confused. I kissed my fingers and touched the screen. I love you, babe. Ilio's eyes moistened, and he touched the screen where my fingers touched. Get back here as fast as you can. I miss you. Thank you for listening, everybody. The little noise you might have heard in the background, those were from my little dog. She's pretty active today. Thank you for joining me. Peace.